I've been doing this for a little while now, so I think it's about time I shine the spotlight on something that I've wanted to cover since the beginning. You see, back before I started uploading to this channel, I compiled a small list of primarily movies, but also shows and video games, just to get a feel for what I wanted to talk about on this channel, and how I wanted to discuss what I discussed. But at the bottom of that list was a spot reserved for special reviews. These were things that I definitely knew I wanted to review, but also wanted to hold off on until I had properly established myself in the YouTube landscape and wanted to do something appropriately ambitious. Have I indeed done that? No idea, but I feel like I've held off long enough. So, to close out Season 1 of EnnEmmEee on this channel, let's take a look at something that I've wanted to dissect for so very long now. Let's take a look at Doki Doki Literature Club. I am beyond excited to finally be talking about this game, and while part of me wishes I could just jump into it straight away, as is protocol by now, let's first start off with a bit of context. It happens every now and then, and we, as the general public, know what to expect at this point. A quaint little video game made by an independent developer suddenly hits it big and becomes a phenomenon. The popularity continues on, the game continues getting traction, all the big streamers and Let's Players get on it at some point, growth and interest in the game continues to surge, sometimes for as long as a couple of years, the game just seems untouchable. And then it all just stops. At best, interest in the game simply wanes and it's able to fairly discreetly slip away into the annals of history. At worst, the reaction to the game becomes downright hostile, with people calling it overrated, overexposed, overplayed, and generally not worth the insane amount of attention it's garnered. Occasionally, the game will be able to rise from the ashes and regain some of its former glory, reminding people why they even liked it to begin with. Still, more often than not, that does not happen, and when the more likely scenario occurs, you know what you've just encountered. You've just encountered a fad. As I said, this is not uncommon at all. Fads exist everywhere, so it was no surprise that they would eventually trickle down to the interactive space. It's common for people to refer to certain games as dead or cringe, and yeah, it sucks. It sucks having a game that you don't even think is worthy of such praise being constantly shoved down your throat with no breaks. It can even suck being on the opposite end of that, just wanting to enjoy your game and not worrying about how overzealous some players get about introducing it to everybody, regardless of whether or not they want it. But every once in a while, you get a game with all the trappings of a quote-unquote fad game that you would expect would go through the natural peak in popularity and then sudden drop off into obscurity and or condemnation. That doesn't happen. Instead, it maintains a steady and loyal cult following, and its reputation does not sour. And while it does eventually retire from the spotlight, it manages to do so with dignity and grace. That is what we'll be talking about today. Doki Doki Literature Club is the brainchild of one Dan Salvato and his developer Team Salvato, which is being extremely generous since his development team appears to have consisted of just himself plus whoever was around that would help out. He did basically everything. With little exception, this was almost entirely a one-man operation. He designed it, he programmed it, he composed the music, and he wrote the script for the game. Thankfully for him, some of those duties didn't require much since this is a visual novel, so programming and design probably weren't the most grueling tasks in the world. However, it's still impressive that a guy who is best known for his Mario Maker levels before this game was able to make something that caught fire so fast. It gives me hope, not gonna lie. Now, as I said, this game is a visual novel. If you're super familiar with that genre, or rather style of video game, good for you. Glad someone is, because I'm certainly not, and I'm not gonna pretend that I am just for this video. I'm not gonna make any broad assumptions about those kinds of games or the people who play them. I'm just here to comment on this game as it comes at me. I'll try not to keep you here for too long, but it's a bit of a crapshoot just how much I'll have to say, so tighten up, because I might get raw. And I've heard the stories, believe me, I've heard them all. I've heard how scary this game is, and how much distress it can cause. I've heard how it's games like this that drive even the sanest of us to the brink of utter insanity. But I'm sure that's an exaggeration. Battle horror games are rarely as scary as advertised, so why would this be any exception? Well, I don't know. That's what this playthrough is for. To find out what it is about this game that affected so many in the ways that it did. Hopefully without getting too armchair psychology E on you all. One final note before we get into this game. I'm only going to be looking at the original 2017 release, as it was played by everybody who experienced it back then. The reason I feel the need to mention this is that in 2021, an expanded version of the game called DDLC Plus was released. I'm not going to be talking about that version though, since I only really want to get a look at the base game, at least for now. Maybe I'll talk about the add-ons at some point, but for now, only the original release matters. So, let's sign up for and attend Doki Doki Literature Club. So when you think of the first thing that you see when you first boot up a game is, what are some of the things that come to mind? Maybe an opening logo, a title screen, an intro cinematic, maybe all the above. How about a consent form? No, really, the game opens with you having to agree to play it after you're hit with all these qualifiers about why that is, in all likelihood, a bad idea. It's sort of like a modernized version of the opening scene of the first Frankenstein movie, where the guy comes on stage and warns the audience about how they're in for some shocking shit by 1931 standards. As I've heard, this game is mostly shocking by 2017 standards, so there's a little higher bar to clear. And like with that opening scene I just mentioned, I don't know what the intended effect this is supposed to have, and whether that contrasts with the actual effect. Everyone knows that the more you tell some people not to do something, the more it makes them want to do it. And I'm not sure if it seems like this are just trying to exploit that, or if it is meant as a genuine warning that if you can't take what this game's gonna throw at you, it's best to get out now before things get ugly. Of course, I can't do that since I'm reviewing this game, which means I just have to drag myself through whatever it has in store for me. So just keep clicking until we reach the end, and finally we can get into it and start playing. Alright, let's go. After the disclaimer, we do get a title screen, accompanied by some really great music, courtesy of Salvato himself, like I previously mentioned. The music is one aspect I'll have more to say about later, so keep that in the back of your head. For now though, let's just start a new game and give ourselves a name. Now, of course, I can't ignore the temptation to call ourselves something incredibly immature, but I have to remind myself that this is the name I'm going to be referred to throughout the entire game, so I have a feeling the novelty will wear off fairly quickly. I'll just go with the channel name. Okay, the stage is set. Let's do this. The game begins with our protagonist on his way to school, meeting up with one of the four main characters of this game, Sayori. He explains how they've been friends for a long time and often used to walk to school together, but also how she's recently been sleeping in more frequently, making that task understandably more of a drag. All this stuff about her oversleeping is one of the many examples of this game slipping in seemingly innocuous details that come into play later. I'll point them out when I find it necessary, but I'm likely not going to get to all of them. Just take my word for it, there is a ton. In fact, let me just put a little counter in the corner of the screen for them. Trust me, I won't get them all, and yeah, some of them might seem a little too innocuous, but everything about this game is so purposefully done that I think it's just as likely that these moments are intentional. Our MC doesn't seem all that considerate of this, and is instead more focused on contemplating abandoning his friend for daring to oversleep. Alrighty, such an endearing protagonist, and we've barely been playing for 2 full minutes. Thankfully, we don't abandon Sayori, and instead let her catch up to us. As we walk to school, Sayori inquires about whether we're joining any clubs, stating that we promised to join one. Of course, the protag doesn't remember that, and assumes it must be from a time he dismissively went along with what Sayori was saying. What was that he said earlier? That Sayori was the type of friend that only kind of stayed around because he'd known her for so long? I'm starting to see why. From all this opening dialogue, it's made clear that Sayori is a very caring and loyal friend who truly wants the best for us and who places our happiness above everything else. Sure would be a shame if we didn't reciprocate that. Anyway, Protag and Sayori make their way to school. After the day is wait, what's this? The school day is as ordinary as ever, and it's over before I know it? An ordinary school day to you is over before you know it? Lucky bastard. As we're spacing out in the classroom, Sayori enters to once again inquire about the clubs. It's revealed that the reason she's being so pushy about this is that she apparently already told her club that she'd be bringing a new member, and is now just guilt-tripping us into coming. Less than 10 minutes in, and we're already kind of batting 0 for 2 on the likable character scale. Oh, I'm kidding, of course. I can't stay mad at Sayori. Look at her, how could I get mad at anyone who makes a tiny tent with their hands whenever they get upset? Still though, I don't know about this whole club joining business. Wait, cupcakes? To hell with that thought, literature club, here I come! Oh, what's this? Today marks the day I sold my soul for a cupcake? Hey man, don't sweat it. I mean, People have done worse for cupcakes. While on our way, Mr. Protag starts getting all woe is me on us as he dejectedly follows Sayori to a section of the school that's generally used for third-year classes. This is a rather unimportant detail that I'm bringing up anyway just to save it for later, so remember that. After arriving at the club, it isn't long before we're introduced to the three other main characters of the game. There's Yuri, the tall, shy one, Natsuki, the little tsundere, and Monika, the one who's always looking at you no matter what position she's in. Maybe next time. Wait, what? And super unnecessary dumbass detail here, but the quotation marks surrounding the ellipsis kind of look like a face. Like an awkward face or something. That is all. Anyway, our protagonist really has his priorities in order when the first thing he notices is that all the girls in the club are hot. Get to know where the majority of his blood flow is being directed. Clearly it's not to his brain. We get an interesting tidbit here when the main character infers that Natsuki is likely a first year in his words, which I'm assuming is synonymous with freshman, and that brings me back to the earlier line about the area of the school where the club is located, generally used for third year classes. With these context clues in mind, it's time to play a game of What grade are they in / how old are they? Alright, so going by what the protag says, and how it's never corrected or contested, we can safely assume that Natsuki's a freshman. As for MC and Sayori, it implies that they're in the same grade, and likely around the same age. As for that line about the classrooms, taking note of the phrasing, it's not like he says he doesn't go there much anymore. He states it as if he's never been there or rarely goes there. This, to me, rules out seniors, since if he was, he'd likely be more familiar with that location. So he's probably a sophomore, and from that we can assume Sayori is too. As for the other girls, we're gonna have to go off of visual indicators. Due to her taller stature and larger breasts in comparison to the others, Yuri's design is one that indicates an undeniable sense of age and maturity. Because of this, I think it can be safely assumed that she's a senior. That just leaves Monika, who could really be any of these, and it later being said that she was in MC's class last year indicates that they're in the same grade. However, it should be noted that high school classes can mix grades, so it is possible Monika is in a different grade. And since it's the only one without a corresponding character, I'm just gonna say she's a junior. So, the results are in, and that would make each character, going from youngest to oldest, between 14 and 15 for Natsuki, 15 and 16 for Protag and Sayori, 16 to 17 for Monika, and 17 and 18 for Yuri. In conclusion, where the fuck was I? Oh yeah, all the girls introduce themselves, basically just establishing what I already told you. The one who seems to get special attention is Monika, likely because MC already knows her prior to this encounter. And how could he not remember? She's everything you need. Smart, beautiful, athletic, truly the perfect woman. I might as well just get with her right now and just end the game right here. But I have a feeling that wouldn't be very interesting, so let's just keep on a-going. After trying some of Natsuki's cupcakes, we try giving her a simple compliment on her work. Unfortunately, she's one of those people who thinks any bit of positive attention is some sort of veiled romantic gesture, and she hates those, so it doesn't go over well. Soon after, we have a conversation with Yuri, where we learn a thing or two about her. It turns out she's quite the reader, and perhaps as a consequence, is a little more book smart than people smart, if you get what I'm getting at. I'm saying she's not a very good conversationalist. Still, her conversation does come with this little gem. Isn't it amazing how a writer can so deliberately take advantage of your own lack of imagination to completely throw you for a loop? Fascinating. And in other completely unrelated news, is it me or is my hand just really heavy today? Some more talking about how cute Natsuki is when Sayori slides up and... whoa. I mean, the text says that she's just giving Nat a shoulder rub, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with little, consensual friend-on-friend shoulder rubbing if both parties are into it, which I'm not sure both are, but the, shall we say, limited visuals paint a slightly different picture. You get me? I'm not just perverted, am I? Thankfully, Yuri is here to rescue that scenario with some more book talk. She tells Natsuki about how deep writing is, that you must be willing to expose your vulnerabilities, and show even the deepest reaches of your heart. She doesn't say this should be done with a sharp-bladed object, but I imagine she's implying such, and yeah, based on that, before we even have to ask. Finally, for this meeting, Monika announces that the club members are going to go home and write their own poems to be shared in the club the following day. Sounds like a plan. But wait, there's a problem. I never officially agreed to join. Oh no! Okay, yeah, whatever, I'll join. I guess it just took all their tits being on display in a row for Protag to decide. Yeah, I could get something out of this place. The girls celebrate my joining, Monika makes Natsuki eat her hair, and Sayori and I walk home together as I reflect on my first day at the club. Overall, it wasn't too eventful, but at least I got acquainted with the 4 girls. Besides Sayori, there was Natsuki, who never smiled like that, Yuri, and of course, Monika. Wait. Why of course Monika? You're playing favorites already, you fuck. Whatever, let's just get to writing a poem. This is probably the most, interactive part of this game. And by that, I mean it involves more than just hitting the spacebar a bunch. What you're supposed to do here is select different words based on which ones you think the girls will like. For example, if you want to cater your poem to Natsuki, you pick simpler, cuter words. If Yuri is more your style, it's better to go with more methodical, polysyllabic words. And if Sayori's still your girl, well, she prefers sad words, usually relating to death in some way. When you pick one that they like, one of these adorable icons will bounce with delight depending on who the word appeals to most. Cripes, and just when I thought they couldn't get any cuter. Since it's the first day and I'm just getting to know the girls, I decided to write one that isn't really leaning in any one direction. I don't want to play favorites. I'm sure we can all be friends, but let's just see how they like it. Soon enough, I'm back at the literature club. Yuri and Monika seem to be trying to get buddy-buddy with me, while Natsuki is less open to that idea, though her reasoning could use some work. I don't know if you plan to just come here and hang out or what. Like, why the hell wouldn't I? That's all we've done so far. Luckily, Monika bails us out of this one, but it's through a statement that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, what does that have to do with anything? Seems like she was trying to help me, but I really didn't know if that was the best way to go about it. I guess we've all been there. Still, that savage roasting does leave Natsuki stuck between saying Monika and manga. Mangaka! Also, I really don't mean to go over every line in this thing, but I just kind of like the use of the word plop to describe her sitting back down. Without visuals, what kind of picture does that paint? I just imagine some gelatinous slime being spilled back into its chair or something. Luckily, nothing diffuses tension like a Sayori intervention, so that's why she's here to say, why can't we be friends? And it actually even seems to work. Yuri then decides to pull out a book she got for us. Man, that's a really nice gesture. Why can't people be this nice in real life? Oh, I get it. Despite Protag expecting some kind of scheduled activities, it turns out that this club is nothing of the sort. Can't imagine why I'd think this place was just somewhere to hang out, Natsuki. Whatever, you just keep rummaging around in the closet. I know you enjoy that shoulder rub more than you're willing to admit. During the downtime, our protagonist does something that I would never do. He falls asleep in the middle of the day while eavesdropping on another person's conversation. Our session of narcoleptic nosiness is cut short by Sayori appearing right in front of us, so close that we can actually see the pixelated edges of her sprite. Okay, no one ever said this game wasn't kind of cheap. I mean, what you're looking at right here is what 90% of the game even looks like. I really hope high-octane gameplay wasn't what you were looking for. Sayori chastises us for falling asleep, and at the understandable inquiry about the existence of a napping club, she just asks whether I've been staying up late again. I mean, I know I have, but I got videos to make. Get the fuck off my back, alright? Oh, we're still talking about EnnEmmEee. Yeah, he has no excuse. He was just jacking off to hentai. But protagonist does bring up a good point. With how much Sayori pays attention to us and tries to make us happy, you have to wonder if she ever has time to tend to herself. I mean, she oversleeps, her room is a mess, and she can't even be bothered to button her blazer. If I didn't know any better, I'd say she might be absolute human filth. I mean, anybody who doesn't wake up at 6 a.m. on the dot, whose room is spotless, and who always buttons their blazers to perfection must have nothing to offer society, right? Right! Oh well, at least Protag takes it upon himself to button her blazer. Unfortunately, he can't make it all the way because her boobs are too big. The game's reasoning, not mine. Monika intrudes on the conversation, and now at her request, it's poem sharing time. I decide to just go up the list, bottom to top, and so start with Monika. Monika seems to really like it, but also points out that it seems like something Sayori would write, which is odd since I didn't really write it with any one person in mind. But if class president Monika says that's who it's for, then I guess that's who it's for. She gives us some words of encouragement about our writing, and then it's time to read her poem. And based on that title, let's just hope things don't get too dirty. That would be truly glorious. When asked for feedback on her work, we don't have much to say, meaning I can at least tell that Protag and I have similar abilities in regards to our poetic analysis, as in we have none. But it's now time for Monika's writing tip of the day, and it's about how you shouldn't strain yourself too much on trying to get your writing just right, and that it's better to just write something down and revise it later than try to be perfect on the first go-around. Wow, that's actually kind of useful. Thanks, Monika. Next, I share my poem with Yuri. She's a little less impressed with it than Monika was, but nevertheless tries to offer valuable feedback that we can use to adjust our poems later. When we get to Yuri's poem, it's certainly indicative of who she's been shown to be thus far. By that, I mean it's flowery, steeped in metaphors, and very hard to read because of her overzealous handwriting. Words were meant to be read, people, not marveled at. Oh well, at least she has the decency to apologize for it. Moving on to Natsuki, she really doesn't seem to like it, probably because we didn't make it cute enough. Actually, Protag does sass Nat a little bit on this, but quickly backs down at the threat of getting smacked. Come on, dude, look at her. I think he could take it. At her size, you should be more concerned about her convenient vantage point for a nut shot. Anyway, Natsuki's poem is very much like Natsuki herself. Short and simple. See ya, Natsuki. Finally, we come to the last person to share our poem with, Sayori. She really likes it, but admittedly, I don't know how much of that is just her being nice or thankful that I even wrote something at all. But as for when we get to her poem, it honestly just feels like it was written by an elementary school student. It even rhymes! But it's fine for what it is. Not as cute as Natsuki's, but what could ever be, am I right? After poem sharing has concluded, we listen in on yet another conversation. This time between Natsuki and Yuri, who are coming into conflict about each other's poems. It seems to be winding down, until Yuri brings me into this, and all hell breaks loose. Dear God, help us all when these two are unleashed upon each other. Nope, don't even bother, Sayori. This argument is like a natural disaster. It can't be stopped, only endured. Hey, you too, Monika. Just like any president, your authority only extends so far. Then I get roped into this somehow, and now I'm being interrogated on my poetry opinions. I'm forced to pick a side. I guess I'll go with Yuri because, I don't know, just get me out of this situation. After my expert diffusion of the situation, I walk home with Sayori yet again, and she clarifies that these Yuri-Suki clashes aren't a common thing. We part ways, and soon enough, it's poem writing time yet again. Once again, I'm not really aiming for anyone in particular. I'm just trying to win these girls over so that I can become better friends with all of them. Except Natsuki, I kinda already struck out with her. Once the next day rolls around, we immediately begin the only way we know how. By antagonizing Sayori. This time, it's about how she doesn't have enough money to buy a snack and wants us to lend her some, the bitch! And okay, not everyone is as eager to lend money to others as some, but this guy decides to take it a step further and drop this little bombshell. If you feel guilty, that means you deserve to feel guilty. Yeah, you hear that, everybody? Anytime you've ever felt guilty about anything, it's because you deserved it. No exceptions. What a true friend. Oh well, at least we get a shake-up this time with Yuri being the one to eavesdrop on a conversation instead of us doing it, and it gives Sayori an opportunity to accept her punishment, and for Yuri to state that there's a little devil inside of all of us. So a whole bunch of nothing happens, all involving something about cookies, before Monika finally arrives, having returned to the club room after practicing piano, which she is in fact learning how to play. After everyone is settled in, we mosey on over to Yuri and decide to inquire about the book that she's reading. The book, titled Portrait of Markov, is about... you know what? Why don't I just let Yuri explain? There you go, there's the plot summary. All that's well and good, but I mostly want to zone in on this detail from Yuri. As she explains, When horrible things happen, it's not just because someone wants to be evil, but because they have their own goals or their own philosophy that they believe in. Then, suddenly, when you thought you related to the protagonist, they're made out to be the naive one, for letting their one-sided morals interfere with the villain's plan. Intriguing analysis, Yuri, but it's one that seems to overlook the fact that a person's actions can still be decried even if their motivations are understandable. Just because someone has a motive behind what they do doesn't necessarily make it right. I mean, think about how many people we'd be letting off the hook for horrible things if all we needed to forgive them was, well, they had a good reason. Explanations don't equal excuses is all I'm saying. And now that I've said all that, can we just go ahead and add like 5 to the counter? I'm sure I probably missed some along the way anyway. Okay, cool. As for Yuri, she just keeps going, and it's really nice to see her so invested in something, but she eventually catches herself and begins apologizing. Per usual. I'm sorry if I ended up saying something strange. No, nothing strange, just some misguided literary analysis from what I heard. After reassuring Yuri that I don't think she's a freak, we begin reading the book, but soon realize that it might be more optimal if we read the same copies side by side. So, something different at last. We saw another one of these more detailed drawings yesterday with Sayori. Let's see what Yuri has in store for us. I do hope it's just as uncomfortable, I mean romantic. By the way, not to get on this game's case too much for graphical limitations, but great book you're reading there, guys. This is actually a fairly nice scene. It's just the MC and Yuri huddling together and reading a book with each other. Not sure what this intimate exchange business is all about. You guys are just reading together. It's all cool. I'm starting to think dating games aren't really for me. Our pleasant chat is somewhat rudely interrupted by Monica telling us that it's poem sharing time once again. Oh well, I'm sure we'll have other opportunities to do this. Besides, we got poems to share. I'm not gonna go as long on this poem sharing session as the last one, as it's more of the same. A lot of this game is kind of repetitive earlier on, and the longer you play, the more and more you catch on to what it's all about. For now. But I'll still run through the poems as they're shared, as it does help us gain insight into each character. Yuri's poem is titled The Raccoon, and tells the quaint little story of the subject of the poem coming across a raccoon and beginning to feed it. Well aware of the fact that once they fed the vermin, it will undoubtedly come back for more. They keep giving in, giving more and more to the raccoon, fully aware of the consequences, but unable to stop themselves. There's also a knife in there somewhere. Oh, it's about our unusual hobbies, is it? Yeah, you wouldn't mind rolling up your sleeves for me, would you? No real reason, just a friend to a friend sort of thing. She does bring up an interesting point, however, about how she feels like everyone has their own interests, likes, and dislikes that they feel pressured into keeping to themselves for fear of ridicule by others, and now it's better for people to respect each other and their individualities than it is to shun those who are into things that are deemed weird, barring hurting others, of course. Well, at least the message is good. Next, I show my poem to Sayori. She likes it, as expected, though she did seem to prefer yesterday's. As for her poem, it's, weird. Something about bottles and how they're all memories. I'll be totally honest, I don't really know what's going on in this one at all. Sayori, maybe you should spend more time with Yuri and Natsuki. I think they're better at expressing their ideas than you are. Oh, Monica taught you a whole lot? Well, not from where I'm standing, she didn't. Alright, let's check out Natsuki's next and see if she's ready to really show what she's capable of. Oh, it's actually pretty good. This poem is about a girl named Amy. She likes spiders, and that's gross, or at least the subject thinks so. Sure, she keeps it to herself, isn't defined by it, and it's not hurting anyone, but because main character thinks it's nasty, they write her off as a person. Once again, this seems to be referencing how some people just get a little too wrapped up in others' interests and unfairly judge them simply for enjoying things they don't get the appeal of. Very similar to Yuri's, but put more bluntly and also slightly less concerning. Much like Natsuki. Alright, the results are in. I liked the poem. Happy now? Who am I kidding? She's never happy. Let's just move on to Monica. So, starting Monica's poem, and I guess I can see where Sayori was getting her inspiration from, since I have no idea what I'm reading right now. Sine, cosine, tangent? Math. The most terrifying concept of all. Wait a second, what's at the bottom? Load me. I mean, how are we gonna do that? Is there a port, or a tray, or a hole where I can stick? Alright, horny Monica aside, the poem was good. Guess it's time for her writing tip of the day. Sometimes you'll find yourself facing a difficult decision. When that happens, don't forget to save your game. You never know when you might change your mind. Or something unexpected may happen. Well, it doesn't take a genius to take that hint. Okay, so now Monica is talking to us about an upcoming festival that'll presumably be used to recruit new members to the club. Sayori's already been preparing decorations, and we're even going to be performing poems in front of everybody. To the surprise of absolutely no one, Yuri and Natsuki do not take very well to this idea. Sayori and Monica seem unable to convince them as well, so I guess it's up to Big Cock McLarge Protag to turn them to the dark side of poetry. Where am I going with this? And yes, Yuri, I have a feeling it will be. Alright, I'm gonna skip over some of this stuff since there are slow parts of this game where not a lot happens. All you gotta know in this part is that we all present our poems in front of each other, it goes well, and we go home with Sayori like usual. This time though, rather than simply parting ways, Sayori stops us and asks us a question. If given the opportunity to walk home with Yuri, would we take it? We're actually given a choice here between what we would say, save, thanks for the tip Monica, and because I don't want to hurt my best friend's feelings, since Lord knows I've been doing that enough lately, I say I would still walk home with her. I mean, I see Yuri every day after school anyway, so what's the danger, right? Sayori seems to appreciate that, ? And we soon depart yet again. I don't know about that last scene. I mean, I tried to be honest, but maybe I didn't really give her the answer she was looking for. You know what though? I'm gonna make it up to her. I'm gonna write a poem for her this time. After everything that she's done for me, at least do it that much. After some dialogue involving Squid, which I'm only bringing up because, yeah. We notice Sayori in the room, but something seems a bit off about her. Instead of being her usual cheery self, she seems kind of out of it. Being the good friend that we decided to be all of a sudden, we ask Monica if she noticed anything off about her, and she decides to talk to Sayori herself. Aw, that's really nice of her. Say, what was she saying to her anyway?
Stay away from him. He's worthless. Kill yourself. You miss nothing to him. Kill yourself. Not end your life. End your life. Would cry. Care.
Good friends. Meanwhile, it looks like Yuri is yet again taking an interest in us, but would rather not vocalize as such. Once again, the responsibility falls on the shoulders of manly McWankboner, Protag, to save the day once more. After all, in his words, I've never really seen Yuri approach anyone or start a conversation on her own accord. Well, maybe she just doesn't fucking want to. You ever consider that? Yuri advises us that although we might just be reading into things a bit too much, there could be more to Sayori's state than she's letting on, and that it might be best to pry further for more details. But I can't worry too much about that now, since it's poem sharing time. Since I sorta wrote last night's poem with her in mind, and also because she could use some cheering up, I decided to show it to Sayori first. Screw that save the best for last nonsense, let's see what she thinks. Well, she certainly seems to like it, a little too much in actuality. And the fact that we wrote it for her doesn't seem to go over all that well, and her speechifying about how important she is to us doesn't do much to soften the blow. If anything, it just tears the hole even deeper, with it ultimately bringing her to tears hearing just how much we care about her. Oh great, now she's deciding to leave early. You really are just impossible sometimes, you know that? Alright, I'm gonna skip ahead a bit again. All you gotta know is that we have another round of poem sharing before we get to what's actually different about this day versus the others. I really don't mean to gloss over this stuff, but we're gonna get to some pretty pivotal scenes in a bit, and I really want to give them their due diligence. So, after yet another poetry sesh is concluded, Monica calls the others to attend, and right off the bat, it's easy to tell that with Sayori not around, the mood is uneasy. It seems Sayori really has been the glue that's been holding this clip together, and without her, it doesn't take long for things to start feeling off. But we can't just worry for too long, the festival is next week, so we gotta get cracking on these preparations. Natsuki's already making cupcakes, of course, Monica's gonna be making poetry pamphlets, and Yuri doesn't have a job. No matter, as Monica is here to save the day and give her a job. Now, it's gonna be her responsibility to make banners and decorations to help set the atmosphere. Cool, so it looks like everybody's set. But what about us? Well, that's for us to decide. Let's see, Natsuki's kind of already out of the picture, not sure how I could salvage that. Yuri would be the most obvious choice since I probably know her the best out of anyone other than Sayori. You know what? I haven't really spent a ton of time with Monica in this club, so why don't I just go with her? They don't seem to like that idea. So Yuri it is, I guess. Oh, what? You probably wouldn't need my help making those cupcakes anyway. Soon enough, it's Sunday, the day of Yuri's visit. It should be a time for excitement. I mean, who doesn't like hanging out with their friends outside of school? But I feel like there's something I'm forgetting. Oh right, my other best friend. I wonder how she's doing. As we're just letting ourselves into her house uninvited, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the absolute deafening silence during the scene leading up to Sayori's room. The entirety of the game so far has had music playing over it, and without that, there's really no audio playing whatsoever since there are no sound effects or anything like that. It really makes you tense up and wonder if something awful has happened, especially since that was alluded to earlier, before you finally open the door and see that... uh-oh. She's fine. Okay. Man, you really got me there, Sayori. that was a good one, not gonna lie. But even though she's still alive, she's in a rather sorry state. One like we've never seen her in before. It's only natural that we press her for questions about just what the hell is going on with her. And after some coercion, she decides to just spill the beans. As it turns out, Sayori, our best friend, the friendliest, bubbliest, most cheerful person in the world, has had severe depression her entire life, thus explaining all the behavior we previously treated as inconsequential. The oversleeping, the value of others' happiness over her own, other ones that we didn't focus on as much. But hey, even though depression is pretty serious, it's nothing a little armchair therapy can't fix. Why go to school? Because it's mandated by the government. Why eat? Because your body needs fuel in order to survive. Why make friends? Okay, I can't help you with that. If you can't comprehend the power of friendship, maybe you do deserve to languish. Oh, and if you think my attempt was laughable, just wait till you get a load of Protag's response. It almost feels like I've been betrayed as your close friend. Way to make it all about you, asshole. Seriously, there's being clumsy but trying your best, and then there's, are you even trying? Or, do you even like this person? Now, admittedly, I've never had my best friend admit to me that they'd been severely depressed their entire life. Thank God. But I'm sure if that ever were to happen, the last thing I'd want to say to them is, oh my God, why didn't you tell me? This is such a betrayal. This is totally my problem. Because guess what? You know what a common symptom of depression is? Feeling like they're a burden on the people around them and that they'd be better off without them. Can you guess what saying this might make her feel at this moment? Okay, so what makes this situation so difficult is that any attempt by us to make her feel better is met with the fact that she doesn't want to. In fact, she's totally resigned herself to her fate and just willing to feel miserable forever, I guess, and hearing how much people care about her actually makes her feel worse. Still though, Protag is going to try his damnedest to do what he can to help his friend. Only after he makes her feel worse yet again, but water under the bridge at this point. It was a whole minute and a half ago. He promises her that whatever it takes and however it makes her feel, he is going to do what's necessary to make her feel better and to make things right. And oh my God, I forgot about Yuri. Bye, Sayori. Gotta go fast. Let me know how that whole depression thing works out. See ya. Oh, thank God. She didn't feel the need to break into my house. On a side note, I must say that is a lovely turtleneck sweater you're rocking there, Yuri. Good call. After we lead Yuri into our room, it doesn't take long for it to become quite apparent that maybe bringing this attractive young woman into the home of a teenage boy wasn't the best idea. Yeah, don't go looking in those drawers, Yuri, to where he keeps his hentai. But okay, let's actually get underway with the decorations, shall we? It seems Yuri's put a lot more thought into this than we did, and probably more so than necessary. I don't know what all this shit about mood lighting and aromatherapy is, but credit to her for thinking this through so thoroughly. Really, really thoroughly. After all that explanation, it's finally time for Yuri and me to get to work on these damn decorations. During the preparations, Protag takes notice of the pocket knife Yuri is using to cut the ribbons, specifically how pretty it is. When we ask her about it, she seems unwilling to tell us, but using our masterful persuasion skills of being the main character, we get her to spill the beans. The thing is, I'm kind of into knives. Well, you know what they say. Better for you to be into knives than the knives being you. Nobody says that, I just made it up. So yeah, Yuri's into knives, is she? I never would have guessed. You're laughing at me. No, you're actually not that funny, to be honest. You're mostly just kind of sad. See, it's okay for me to say things like that, since I don't actually exist within the world. But as for characters who do exist in this world, Yuri hands the knife off to Protag to let him hold it, which was clearly putting too much faith in the guy, as the first thing he decides to do with it is feel the point of it with his finger to test how sharp it is. Well, that was stupid. Why did he do that? I don't know, Yuri. I really don't know. Oh, great. Now she's blaming herself for us being an idiot. There really is just no end to the misery, is there? No worries, though, as Dr. Yuri is here to save the day. And by day, I mean our finger from a tiny laceration that was entirely our fault, as she puts my finger in her mouth and licks the wound. I feel her tongue curl around my finger. Well, I think we just had our first genuinely scary moment in this game. Oh, you weren't thinking? Is that your reasoning for that? Aw, man, I think I made her feel bad. I mean, according to the text, her face is burning up. Well, put her out already, man. What are you waiting for? I know you think she's smoking hot, but you don't need to take it literally. Okay, it's actually just being used as an expression. But Protag still has an odd idea of how to save this scenario. In his own words, I take Yuri's hand and lick her index finger in return. You know, it's at this point that I'm seriously wondering how Natsuki's doing with those cupcakes of hers. Oh, and would you look at that? Yuri quickly pulled her sleeve over her arm. I wonder if she's hiding something from us. I mean, gosh, it sure would be silly if she brought an extravagant pocket knife for some other reason other than just arts and crafts. A little head bumpage later results in Protag getting some paint on Yuri's face. Just trust the text, you know the game isn't going to show it at this point. And from that, we do get a rather nice, tender scene between Protag and Yuri, as the former washes off the paint on the latter's face. I'm just soaking in these scenes while I can, pardon the pun, since I can already tell I'm going to miss them soon enough. It is telling that a somewhat blatantly romantic scene such as this can still have a sense of genuineness and sweetness about it. It just goes to show how invested I am at this point. I really like these people, and it's nice seeing them so content. A sort of calm before the storm, if you will. Said storm begins setting in once Sayori reappears and forces Yuri to depart rather abruptly. It's clear that Sayori is trying to mask her sadness by saying that her happiness is the only thing that matters to her, but judging by what I'm going to assume are non-of-joy tears running down her face, I may have to call her bluff on that one. Once again, Sayori is just pummeling herself more than anyone could ever hope to do for her, and that's when she sneaks in this little nugget of info. Monika was right. Sayori, what did Monika say to you? I'm starting to think I shouldn't have left you alone with her. Finally, Protag puts his foot down and says that he won't let this continue. That even if it takes an entire lifetime, he is going to stay by Sayori's side until she doesn't feel any pain anymore. And that is when we are given the ultimate choice. Okay, so even though I obviously know what both of these are insinuating, I'm actually still gonna go with I love you, since it might be what she needs to hear right now, and I can always take it back or say that I love her as a friend or something. Besides, what's wrong with telling your best friends that you love them anyhow? Sayori is naturally overwhelmed by us finally confessing, and she falls into our arms and, oh hey, it's us! Yeah, this is actually the best lick up Protag we get in the entire game, so take it in while you can, I suppose. But getting back to the sad shit, Sayori says how even though this is supposed to be the happiest moment for her, she still has yet to feel any better. But Protag reassures her that even though it'll take some time to make things right, it's okay, because he'll be there every step of the way, and that no matter what happens, he will be there for her, no matter what. Aw, that's sweet. So now that we know that Sayori's gonna die, it's time for the festival. Monika greets us as sweetly as she usually does, and our conversation is as pleasant as it normally is, until Monika brings up Sayori. It turns out Monika knows everything about our little exchange with Sayori yesterday, and everything she told us, and even accentuates that by saying we kind of left her hanging this morning. Huh. And what's this poem she was meant to present today? Oh, Oh, that's, yeah, that's, oh, God, that's kinda... Oh, wow, would you look at the time? It's make sure my best friend isn't dead o'clock. See you later, Monica. Maybe. You know, what am I so worried about? Sayori has a history of oversleeping. Who's to say it's not the same thing this time? It's just as her and Protag said, the same as it's always been. I'm probably just overthinking because of my new perspective, but it sounds like she's been that way for a while and nothing truly bad ever happened before. And this time she has even less reasons since we just told her yesterday we'd be there for her. Now look, there's no point in getting all worked up when it's probably not a big deal. Oh, really? You're gonna go ahead and barge into her room anyway? Alright, well just know that barging into people's rooms when they're not expecting you can lead to seeing things that are very difficult to unsee. Okay, 2 things. 1, told you so. 2, the fuck? Yeah, here's where you notice that something isn't quite right with this game. After hours of fun but also fairly inane gameplay, we're suddenly hit with a double whammy of our cute best friend not only being severely depressed, but then deciding she can't take it anymore and ending it all. Oh, and the fact that Protag rationalized that confessing was the wrong thing to do and may have actually increased her likelihood of suicide. So in a way, it's like we killed Sayori. Well, I can't say my interest hasn't peaked now. I mean, it sucks to see Sayori go and all, but I'm just wondering where the hell we can go from here. Oh. Well, I guess that wraps up this game. So that's Doki Doki Literature Club. Pretty standard dating simulator, but I will give it credit for its unorthodox ending. Because that's totally the end, right? I'm finished, right? There's not anything more to talk about. I mean, there can't be anything more. I mean, after that, what could come next? I mean, it says end. No, look, it says end. What could there be? Right? Join me in part 2.